Ladies and gentlemen, I'm very excited to introduce you our guest today, Hardeep Gambhir. He is the founder of the Residency. He's 21. He's been a part of other startups, and he's building the Residency, which I guess you can explain. It's really cool what you're building, and I'm very excited to have you on the pod.
Yeah, appreciate it, man. And thanks for having me on the podcast. The Residency is a network of hacker houses across the world where students who are in college usually take gap semesters and come to one of our hacker houses to build their ideas or do research full time for 3 to 4 months. So that's what the concept is. And if I were to explain it to someone who's like either 5 or 70, I usually explain it as it is a co-living and co-working space for you to build alongside like-minded people.
Mm.
So the first batch started in September. We never got houses of our own in the starting. We ended up partnering with the hacker houses that were already existing. And we just tell these hacker houses that were already existing that like, hey, we need 5 rooms for the residency for residents to come in. They'll pay you rent as usual, and they'll just like be building here full time. So they're like, okay, that sounds cool. So we started in September 1st in Berkeley, and then that cohort ran from September to December. Then we had our second cohort start January. That cohort ran from January to April. In the first cohort, we had one house. In the second cohort, we had 2 houses, one in Berkeley and one in SF. And now, starting May, we have 6 houses across the world. And how the process went has been honestly pretty natural. The first cohort was a little bit hard to get together because it was a very new concept. People didn't know how much to trust this idea, or very cool, first people, they're of course we are taking a bet on them, but they're taking a bet on us too. So it's definitely was an effort to pull the first cohort together. But after that came together, after we marketed ourselves well, we put out a few tweets showing what we do, why we do it, what the program entails. Growing from there wasn't too hard because we ended up getting applications from like really talented people, and many of her who were already in our contacts. And when that started happening, it became like a very natural word of mouth cycle where people would tell their friends about us. And because the demand grew so much, opening houses almost became necessary to accommodate the demand. So that's how we've like expanded so rapidly. And our second cohort was especially really successful, being the reason why for a third cohort, for like 50 spots, we ended up getting like 700 applications almost, which ended up being a lot.
Well, so now you connected and you partnered up with Anderson Horowitz, if I'm correct, to kind of show them, and you have some advisors. What was the process like building out that advisors and like partnering up with some other investment firms?
Yeah, it wasn't particularly hard. My co-founder Nick can speak more about this because he was the one responsible for most of these partnerships. But it ended up going like Nick was connected to many of these investors already and talks with them, and he simply asked them that our program ends in these 4 months. At the end of the 4 months, would you like to just come to a demo day and listen to what everyone has built, what their progress has been like,
Hmm.
and potentially stay connected with them? And at the end of the day, like many of these VCs, right, their job is to really scout for the best talent and see which founders are the best people they could invest into the best return on their investment for their fund. And when they have any sort of opportunity to know more talented founders, usually they don't say no. And so it ended up going pretty smooth. And we already had a decent reputation. Sam Altman advises us, and so it ended up being a pretty natural path to be able to get these VCs to come to our demo days. And
How did you get a Sam
um,
Altman? You mentioned Sam Altman
that
like, very lightly, like, oh, just Sam Altman. How'd you get him on?
that's actually just all Nick. Nick has been connected with him for quite a bit now. And as far as I remember, he met Sam at a party, and he was like, after he quit his job, he was thinking about what he wants to build next. something education related was on top of his mind, and he pitched the idea of the residency to Sam, and Sam was very happy to just advise us on matters related to the residency.
What would be your like advice based on your experience for like these groups of people, like young founders trying to build?
Hmm. But that's a hard one whenever someone asks for advice because I'd say I'm mostly figuring things out on my own. And yeah, it's honestly been like a lot of just, it's hard to give advice on this matter too much because I'm pretty early to this myself. I think the biggest piece, like the one mindset shift that I've had since I headed to the Bay and the months I stayed there was after like joining communities like Build Space, after being in the residency, after just talking to extremely successful people around, I realized like there's truly no bounds to yourself. Like, I think I come from a pretty middle class family, and growing up, it was very clear what things were out of our reach and what things weren't. What things were too expensive, what things were within our reach. And I think once you come from that sort of family background, it was like I think in my mind I had these limits to myself of what I could do and what I could not. If I look outside the window right now and think like, there's that building. 5 years ago, I would have thought like, wow, that's crazy that people can just build that stuff. I wonder how I'll fit in. And like today, I feel like when I look outside, there's very few things that I feel like I can't do. And honestly, like none at all right now. Like I feel like being in SF gave me the confidence that truly like everything around us is just built by people like us. That Steve Jobs thing. And we all can just like, if you put in enough effort, if you have enough drive, there's literally not a single thing that we can't reach. And Apple makes its products that are super beautiful, but like inside its product, when the products are at its very first stage, there's just like janky Raspberry Pis or something, I'm guessing, like just connected together to like make something work. Everything's like super scrappy, and the whole innovation and building just always starts in that way. And it's pretty necessary to not make yourself feel like that you aren't doing shit when you're dealing with those scrappy stages of building, because that's how everything starts. That's how you actually end up becoming um, successful and end up doing something meaningful for the world. It all ends up starting from those scrappy stages of fucking around and finding out.
And is the residency kind of helping? Because you said, being scrappy is sometimes unmotivating. Is that kind of like a community of builders? Do you think that plays a pivotal role in the initial stages?
Yeah, yeah, that's definitely been one of the very core missions of us starting the residency. What the education system we think is like pretty flawed, that it doesn't cater towards people who just want to innovate and build. I think since the since internet has been released in the world and it's changed the world entirely, things education has definitely changed. Like a lot of the education is virtual now. Google Classrooms, there's Zoom, where we do many of these meetings. But I truly feel like even then, what people don't truly understand how much things internet changes and how much opportunity it gives to the world. Like you can literally just like in being in SFF, I've seen people make like apps that like one of my friends, he builds this app that looks at your face and tells you what colors of clothes would suit best to the color of your skin. And he makes he makes like a very decent amount of money, more than my mom and dad combined and doubled for an entire year. Like that's crazy to me. And I think most people don't understand that just how much opportunity lies in the space of the internet and making products online. Most of the time when I built things in my life, I've always been like just by myself in my room in my basement. And yeah, the residency, very core mission of the residency is to like have people be surrounded by people who are like-minded, to be able to build alongside them and like come out with some really awesome friendships. I mean, the very core
Mm,
reason that motivated me to start this with Nick was that I spent my first year of university, that I in the university that I tried very hard to get into. And once I got in, I just hated that first year with my entire heart. Like I did not like it at all. And I feel like
mm.
that frustration was what motivated me to build the residency with Nick.
Is that frustration like with school or with like building your projects?
No, no, just with school.
So so you are currently on like a gap year, if I'm correct.
Mhm.
And you're currently building the residency. Do you plan on
Yeah.
going back to school?
Uh, Ironically, I do think I'll be going back to school for 1 year at least. And the idea is that, like, I think before I was studying the wrong things, and I'm planning to change my major, and also just I feel like even though I don't feel like I have a community at my university, I feel like I have a community in Canada, in Toronto. And I hope to like when I'm at school just to like commute often and keep focusing on my projects and um, keep school like pretty part-time. And like one of the only thing that entices me to go back to school is like having a full ride scholarship there. And there's a good chance that I actually might end up taking some other route. That I'm gonna be applying to the Thiel Fellowship, to magnificent grants that like allow you to like drop out of university and like build on your projects. And if those work out well, maybe there's like another path that lies starting September. It's very much up in the air right now. I'm not sure.
Mm. And how are you sustaining the residency at the moment?
So the residency like it makes a little bit of money, so that helps. And also it makes a little bit of money, so that helps. And there's also just me doing contract jobs that help me uh, to be able to sustain myself with a little bit of more luxury. And yeah, when I go back to school, then I have a full red scholarship, so it really helps things out. And yeah, my parents unfortunately don't financially support me, but still, it hasn't been too bad. Like having the full red scholarship actually helps a lot. I'm very fortunate to be able to get that.
Yeah, so how do you, so you said you make money from the residency itself. How is that process?
Yeah, so how the residency makes money is we charge a program fees on top of rent that we charge the residents who come in. And so say this is just like I'm pulling a number out of my head. It's like if the rent is $1,300, we end up charging like a 1,600 fees in total per month. So that $300 extra per person per month accumulates, and that helps us pay ourselves. And this fee accounts for like having this fee accounts for just finding the really best people to have one person be surrounded with. So the screening process, and also like organizing some events that we occasionally do. Every house is a little bit different in this aspect. Some houses have more events, some have less events. Then we also have some mentorship that we provide. Again, distinguished to every house. Some houses get more mentorship, some houses get less mentorship, and also just the demo day at the very end, where we put these residents in front of some really reputable investors. I think one of the like these are like some of the things that I list to my residents, so that's what I'm like extracting that answer from. But I feel like truly the best value that we give to these people is the people beside them, and also just the connections we give them. I feel like the residency like started pretty small, but like that now that we like got some really accomplished people for our first and second cohort, the network just keep expanding of some extremely talent dense people. And that's something I'm like really proud of. And I feel like that's something that most people is like that is something that is what entices most people to actually pay for their residency.
Mm. And how do you go about building a community of talented people? Like, what do you look for in the people who apply, and how do you what's your metric? How do you go about determining? Nice.
So there's like a specific few things we look for. We only actually have like 10-minute interviews for the residency, and we are working on like being pretty good on like being able to look for these qualities when we are reviewing these applicants. And some qualities we look for is like being very high agency, like someone who's like willing to just who just does shit, and like you don't have to tell, they don't wait for any orders or anything, they just like make things happen. And being open and kind, that goes pretty hand in hand. Where like they're open to new ideas, they're not just fixated upon things. Kind is pretty self-explanatory. You look for people who are also curious and like are always like wanting to learn more, and are very thoughtful and intentional about what they do in life. And like they have like whatever they do, they have like reasons to back why they do what they do. And also high energy always helps, but it's not like a completely mandatory trait because not everyone can be high energy.
Mm.
And so that's like the list that I usually go through when I'm screening these people. But honestly, like every interview we have, what makes people stand out the most is when they're like very high agency, like they've done stuff in the past. They have a clear vision of what they want to do, or if even if they're in an exploratory mode, you can see that they've figured these things out before. And and the third one is just like honestly just vibe. You can just like sometimes you can just tell if someone's gonna be a good part of this.
I guess the people who came out of your batch were doing better. What would you say are different about, or like key traits they have that you found while helping them in the hacker houses?
People who got into YC. And so I think it's like it really varies, right? I'll stick to just YC right now. Like for the people who got into YC, I'll answer what was amongst every one of them. And I think it was focus. Like everyone in our cohort, regardless if they got into YC or not, I think they exhibited the characteristics that we picked them for. So that was high agency, curiosity, kindness, thoughtfulness, intentional, energetic. For the people who specifically got into YC, these people like were very heads down in what they were building, and they were like fixated upon like making this absolutely incredible. Yeah, I can like think of like all the four people who got into YC from our residency, and I won't name them right now because I don't know if they want to share that yet.
Sure.
But they all of them were incredibly focused for the entire 4 months they were working on that one idea. They definitely pivoted, calibrated, but they stick with what they wanted to do with the idea starting on.
I see. And what would you say about like just about community building? Like, what are things? Because it's something I'm really interested in because I tried building my own communities in Seoul. Um, about how to manage a community because it can get sometimes hectic. Sometimes there might be conflicts. How do you manage building a great community?
It's definitely been an interesting experience to say the least. There's lots of hurdles that come with community building. I think most people think that community building ends up being like really easy, but I feel like it definitely requires like a certain type of characteristic. It definitely requires a certain type of characteristic, and I think what makes the best community and what makes community truly awesome, I think in all of our hacker houses, something that has made the community awesome is a culture of pushing each other to be better. Where like, we have these demo days every week, once a week in every one of our hacker houses. And all of our hacker houses, everyone like questions each other, like why are you doing that in your product the way that you're doing? How do you think you be able to solve this problem better? Why why are you not considering this idea? Why are you not open to it? And everyone just pushes each other a decent bit. Another one is just like being willing to listen. I think this is something that like really lacks in the world, where I think every one of us is like every one of us wants to talk a lot about ourselves, but few people want to listen. Few people want to keep listening to the story of someone else and keep asking questions and dive deeper into why they do what they do. And I feel like that distinguishes the houses of the residency a lot. Whenever you come, there's this very intensity that whenever you come in the house, there's this intensity that exists and everyone's very dedicated towards their mission. But there's also this wholesomeness that exists where everyone's like willing to listen to each other and like truly genuinely curious about what is the story of this other person and why they do what they do. And it truly creates like such amazing bonds because every one of our houses, like we look out for each other and we encourage everyone to be the best version of themselves. And another one that creates an amazing community is that giving them the freedom to innovate. So, for example, one of our houses, our Berkeley house, we call it a duocracy. Essentially, like there's no like quote unquote leader of the house. You rather just do stuff. You're encouraged to just like change things around the house. You're encouraged to start new events in the house. You're encouraged to start new rituals in the house. So, for example, there's one person that came in our Berkeley Hacker House last semester. They started this bonfire reading group at night on the roof, where everyone would come together and for 1 hour we just quietly read in a circle around fire. And that was just like incredible. And another one was someone organized a party. Someone organized a Pomodoro sessions where everyone would work in Pomodoros for like 6, 7 hours and like take breaks together. And I feel like this initiative really goes far and in creating an awesome community and friendships. And first of all, it starts with us giving the residents the freedom to innovate, to make things happen, to take initiative, to change things. Because once people have that agency over changing things in the house themselves, then it truly feels at home.
I mean, you already mentioned like you try to the people in the residency you try to ask like why you're doing what. What would you say is your why for doing the things you're doing at the moment?
I think about this a lot. I don't know. This is a hard question, and why I say that is because there's this on my personal website. Uh, I have this blog that says why I do what I do, and that's the only blog that's been empty for like 6 months because I can't like truly narrow down why I do what I do. But I feel like if I really have to push myself, I think it changes every once in a while. You do different things and it changes. Why I do currently what I do? The residency, um, and like working in that software is because I truly care about education currently. I grew up in New Delhi for a lot of my life, and in India, the education system's like, in my opinion, particularly bad. It's very
Hmm.
much focused on rote learning. I never had the freedom to, like, I was always the kid where I would be really shitty at school. I'd get such horrible grades, and then come back home and I'd rush home, and like at 2:30 p.m. there'd be an art show that start on the TV, and I'll just like start making art and craft things while looking at that show. And then after the show would be ended, and I'll have some sort of artifact that I made from the show. After that, I'll hop over to my laptop and I'll like start emulating games, like a PSP games to a laptop or Nintendo games to a PSP, things like that. And also just like learn to emulate software. I did a bunch of things on my laptop, and at the moment it felt very trivial. But I feel like as I've grown up, I realized like the depth of knowledge I had of computers back in the day, that most people don't even have that knowledge even in college. What really motivates me to work on the residency and like revolutionizing education altogether is that I felt like I was pretty stupid back in school because I would look at these other kids and I'd look at them performing really well in these conventional fields. But me feeling like shit, but performing exceptional in something that I didn't know was of actual value. And I feel like education has been stagnant for lots of years now. And like it hasn't fundamentally changed. And now the world is changing so fast with AI, with technology, that I feel like education's like due for a software upgrade for way too long now. And there seems there has to be so many things I feel like that's changed. Especially I feel like I found this in COVID. Like everyone had a horrible time in COVID. I love my time in COVID because I
Me
was
too.
able to, yeah, it's crazy.
We,
And
we could work, we had the freedom. Yeah.
exactly. Like, how did you learn in COVID?
Learn coding. I learned in COVID.
No, no.
In
How did you learn
COVID.
anything in COVID?
Yeah, in COVID, it was on Zoom, but the tests and those things weren't really done properly. So I would probably like watch a YouTube video around that concept that, teaches it much better. So I would just watch that and I would learn it like 10 times faster.
Hmm. And yeah, exactly, right? Like, I'd sit in like 2 hours lectures at my college. It'd be absolutely garbage. And then I'd like watch like a 10-minute YouTube video that'll summarize the entire concept with like impeccable animations. Like school just doesn't leverage the technologies and the resources that exist out there. And it really pisses me off a lot. So I feel like yeah, COVID was like a huge testament to just how well technology has evolved to change the education system, and I feel like it just needs to be changed much
Hmm.
faster. And that's what motivates me currently.
I have actually a similar motivation because you mentioned you went to school in India. I went to public school in South Korea for like 2 years, and it was like the worst experience I've ever had in my life. It was really bad. Like, one of the main reasons it was just really boring to learn any of the things because most of the teachers weren't really passionate. Like, I really didn't understand why they couldn't just replace a teacher with like a reader, because they would just be reading from the textbooks. Like, why am I here? Why am I wasting my time from a teleprompter? That was
Exactly.
one of my biggest concerns. And it's just memorization at the end of it. Especially Korean school, it's literally just memorization. And
Same with India.
and it's like it's crazy because I was in middle school and everyone, like in the States, it's more about the university you go into, but in Korean school, it's the high school you go into, and that is a driving factor of your future as well. Like there's like specialized schools, and each high school has a tier, and you kind of have to like start thinking about, like when you're thinking planning and getting your SAT ready and all those things for college, you do that in middle school. So I was kind of shocked by that, and that kind of yeah, and I really think AI in education is something like that. Like I see some form of future, and I think it's like the teachers who are really passionate are going to be the ones to stay, but the teachers who are not teachers, like they should not be teachers at all. They
Yeah.
will not have the job. I'm very passionate about. Um,
Yeah. I absolutely agree with that. I feel like you touch on some really good points. Like I vividly remember like the Indian education system, like teachers just like reading from the book just pissed me off to the soul. And honestly, like what AI enables us is like it can give like one-on-one time for people. Like, dude, I'm like taking this linear algebra course right now in the summer. My professor is garbage. He doesn't answer to my emails. He doesn't like when I get on the office hours, he shuts me off in like 15 minutes that he has to rush to another student. And we don't have like any help that we get apart from that. And all everything else on the portal is just videos. So literally, if it wasn't for ChatGPT being able to answer my questions, I would be so failing this class. And like it just like actually makes me disgusted just how badly structured the system is right now. Like there is literally no incentive to truly learn. It's just to like get the grades.
this is a question I ask all my guests. I mean, if you're 21, which is very young for the guests I usually interview, it's if you can travel back to when you're 17 years old, what would you tell yourself?
What was I doing when I was 17? Okay, this is a little bit. it's a little bit cliche, and it's that be more authentic and just quote unquote. And that's like really cliche, but it's like being authentic. I feel like is just so important. And like I hate saying be yourself, but like it's almost true. And I feel like one of the things I've like struggled with in like the last years, and I've never struggled with this before that as much, is that when you like start doing things that are really ambitious and really big, and you're surrounded by people who are doing similarly like different things, but like of the similar scale and like super big ambitions, like there's definitely like ends up being like a FOMO at one point or so where you think, oh, you should be doing this and you should be doing this. Then yeah, B2B SaaS is blowing up. You feel like, oh, there's a lot of money there. Think like something like someone's like getting into Jane Street and like making 300K a year or so, and or 300K in like a summer internship, and you're like, wow, Jane Street seems awesome. And I feel like I've had those phases before, and now I'm at a point that like I think I've truly finally gotten to a point that I actually don't give a fuck about what everyone else is saying. And I'm just like I feel like truly authentic to myself now and like really pursuing what I like. And like regardless of what my family tells me, what my friends tell me, like I care about I listen to their opinions, but I don't value their opinions if they don't necessarily seem valuable to me. And I feel like that's just very important to do because I feel like one of the things that happens often in teenagers, everyone gives you so much advice and everyone's telling you to follow this or that, that you feel like end up feeling pretty impressionable that you should follow this or that. But like at the end of the day, it's pretty stupid that you should just like follow your gut actually. Like you'd think like making big life decisions would come up to like a very logical process of following things, but at the end it's just like following your authenticity and your gut to the maximum. So
Mm,
I'd give that advice to myself. And I think there's a caveat to it that there's one thing being authentic, and then there's one thing being like, and there's one thing indulging yourself in behaviors that are just satisfying in the moment and like optimizing for instant gratification. I think both of those things are very distinct, and it should be kept in mind that you when you are following authenticity, you should keep practicing delayed gratification and then follow the authenticity.
mm.
And that's I think super important.
Still, oh, I didn't think of it like that because I think guests usually did say follow your heart, but your heart sometimes is just for pleasure. So
Yeah, I
that's
mean,
a really good.
at this moment I love candy, but like does it help me? No, it's just empty calories. So I think not following that gut is like just very important.
I think you're talking about believing in your own judgment and things. It was kind of interesting. I was listening to Sam Altman recently, and he was saying like much of his success and the OpenAI and Y Combinator and all the things he did was just by not listening to people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think general advice is like one of the worst. Like no matter how awesome a person is, I feel like general advice it's only general to an extent. Like you know, for example, Paul Graham is like very pro college, but like I don't think he's right. Like, I think he's an awesome person, and I feel like I've read so many of his essays that have changed my life. But I think he went to Harvard for his undergrad, like Harvard or Cornell for his undergrad, and his experience was just like way different. He was studying what he likes, and he just like keeps spitting the advice to people that you should just go to college. And I feel like one should think of like going to college off as equal risk than not going to college because you're risking your time and money even then. I feel like our parents and society makes us think like going to college is like the safest route. And I mean, I don't think it's true.
Mm. Yeah, especially I think if you have to pay the tuition, the loan is kind of like one of my teachers in school, he still has to pay down his tuitions and he's 35 years old and he has two kids and he still has to
Yeah.
pay down his debt.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's
You know,
absolutely insane, especially in America.
I think another thing is you have six bases in different countries. What would you say is like different in the startup ecosystem? In like Bangalore, India, San Francisco, Toronto, and other places.
Yeah, so right now we have six places. We have two houses in SF. We have one house in Berkeley, California, very close to SF, one in Berlin, Germany, and one in Bangalore, India, and one in Cambridge, Massachusetts, in Boston. And
Mm,
so, and like we're starting two more houses, one in Toronto and one in London very soon, and possibly one in Montenegro too. And with those houses, the ones that I'm gonna start, I won't talk about them. The houses that currently exist. The SF houses feel like the two SF houses are very much startup-y. And Nick, my co-founder, can talk better about this because I haven't seen that cohort yet. But as far as I know, it's very much startup-y, and everyone's like pretty well accomplished. Like the people who are like coming in, like they have already done like really cool things, and they've almost been a part of the startup ecosystem from before. The Berkeley house, it's more research vibes. It also has some startup people, but also has a decent bit of researchy people. And it's like everyone in that house, I feel like it's like has a big passion for the sciences. The Cambridge house, again, research vibes, but also startup-y. Think of like very much like Arcadia. The Berlin house, I actually don't have much idea about it because it's like very, both me and Nick aren't there. But as far as I know, like the people that are working there right now and what I've looked into their ideas, it's very deep tech startup, startup focused. And the Bangalore house where currently am, and I can speak the best to this house right now, is that everyone here is, I feel like at a, like everyone here is has done less startup related things in their life than the people in SF and other places. But I feel like people here still have the same level of caliber and still the same level of agency here and the same level of risk taking if than as per the as the same level of the other houses. And people here are working again very startup focused. There's no research folks here.
I mean, I think talking about Bangalore, you recently had a Twitter post and you kind of explained what it was like. Like you saw some guy watching Andre Katarpi, four uncles just talking about software marketing. So is Bangalore kind of like the SF in India? Would you say?
Yeah, 100%. I think it's called the Silicon Valley of Asia. Um, there probably is like also like similar places in China, but China is just like always so uh, gate kept that we never know what the hell's going in China.
Would you
But
ever build the residency in China?
absolutely, I think we might like next year.
Wow, that would be.
Like we need some connections because I feel like we need to like promote residency differently there in China because they don't have access to Twitter and like these traditional social media platforms. So this is like the chart that I recently saw, and it just like shows like the different startup cities, and like it made me go insane that China is so much up here, like with the US. It's literally the only place competing with the US in the world, and I had absolutely like Bangalore's not even up here. London's up there, but like Toronto's not up there, which is like crazy to me. So like it was like very surprising to me when I saw this. And it like
Uh,
showed me just like China actually has a lot of potential that's untapped right now. So 100% China would be like one of the places we want to expand to soon.
Yeah. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. This is Hardeep. Now don't leave. I think it should upload. So I'll stop it and then.